Hey, welcome. Not only am I going to show you how I use Cassette, but I'm going to show you how to get it back into the computer. We'll go over the chords you need, noise reduction, all that jazz. And today's video is sponsored by RTM, Recording the Masters. We'll be using their cassette tapes throughout the entire video. For me, I want to achieve as much colorization of the sound as possible. That's the reason why I use all these analog colorized processes, because I want the playback to sound completely different than what I put in. Using type 1 offers me more color. Sometimes I use type 2 and it sounds so crispy, it almost still sounds digital. And if you enjoy this content, it would mean a lot to me if you would like and subscribe. Thank you. For starters, I'm going to be using the Sony F96 microphone, and then we'll switch to direct electric guitar. Now we go full electric, and I'm using the SP555 as a preamp because it has a really nice slap echo. Now let's begin the transfer. Get a 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter cord. Plug into the output of the tape recorder. Take the other side to the back of your interface. These jacks create the pathway to analog magic. You got your line ins and line outs. For the tape transfer, we of course are going in. I like number 8 for no good reason. Here we go, take 1. Now play the tape in real time back into the DAW. Keep an eye on it just in case clipping occurs. It does get boring, so grab a book. I highly recommend this book about Sun Ra. Look at this photo. 4 concert grands? What are they doing? Obviously, one of the things that we want to deal with is hiss, noise. Now, it's not a bad thing. In fact, I personally don't want my music sounding like it's recorded in an anechoic chamber. You might, and that's great. But for the rest of us, we want some kind of texture, some kind of hiss, but it's nice to be able to control it. So in that case, I'm going to show you a couple different ways how I go about attempting to get some control. First things first, you're going to want to find a space of just the hiss. You want the hiss isolated. So when you're doing your recording and dumping back in the computer, you want to make sure that you get some section of just pure hiss. Something like that. So what we want to do, put it on the highest resolution, and we want to put the noise profile on learn. Now what it's doing is studying the difference between the noise and the music, so it can do its best to remove just the noise. Now we're on learning, we're going to play the noise. As you can see, it's picked up its profile. We're done. Hit stop learning, and now we can start reducing it. So we can play it, and you can hear it go away. Now it's best to do this while we're listening to the actual guitar, because we want to make sure that we're not affecting the guitar. I just wanted to be extreme there so you could really hear how it can mess you up bad. Gotta drop it down. This recording doesn't even sound that bad. We go back here. I'm going to add some more plugins to the guitar in order to bring the noise floor higher. So we can try a more extreme case because this is a little bit too chill. I'm going to go with my favorite when I don't know what to do. Legacy UAD LA2A. Why? Because it's so simple. Just turn up that peak reduction and the gain a little bit. Yeah, it's not really doing anything at all, honestly. Let's give it some more. Okay, now it's juicy. I've been liking this plugin a little bit too much lately. So let's add a little saturation. Remember, it's nice to turn these parameters up really, really extreme so you can actually hear what the hell is going on, because oftentimes you're turning knobs and you don't really hear anything. So make it extreme and then you can really listen. Why does that sound like a ring mod? Did you happen to notice how weird this acoustic sounds when I was playing it? It's really, really weird sounding. Let's take everything off. Put it back on. Wow, it's really not that different. Let's give it more something. Ah yes, Oxford. Can't go wrong. Let's turn the effect really high. I don't know, 50? Let's push it a little bit less than a dB. Curve, let's keep it down low so it's a little bit warmer. Now we've definitely brought the noise to a more noticeable level. Check it. There we go. Okay, let's do our X noise again. Hit learn. Learn off. And the plugin will show you the difference between the audio and the noise. Here's what it thinks the noise is. That's very spooky. Now if you listen very carefully, do you hear the noise kind of being almost gated? The first hit, there's some noise coming through, and then it gets clamped down. Listen very carefully. And the way we can adjust for that is simply by messing with the attack and release. Okay, I think this sounds okay. Now without. With. These days, honestly, I'm not using noise reduction half as much as I used to in the past. I've come to just appreciate the noise. And in reality, once you have this in a full song with a lot of drums and bass and different kind of harmonic content, the noise is going to be in the background, just kind of adding support. The noise will just become kind of an emotional support animal, you know? I'm going to take this off and let's move on to later in the recording where there's electric guitar. By the way, I kind of cook these a little bit. I do like to record my tapes a little hot. Probably not the best practice, but it's usually what I do. Here's some noise that we can get rid of. That's some noise. Learn that, turn it off, bring it up a little bit. Versus subtle is the name of the game. You always want to keep it as subtle as possible. Without the noise reduction. In this instance, I feel that it helps quite a bit. That refrigerator buzz is just not helping anything. But let's just pretend it never happened. Let's go back to the acoustic and we'll try isotope. Let's give it some more feeling, all right? I'm not going to compress it. I'm just not happy with it. Instead, what I'm going to do is add a precision maximizer. The old Oxford. Take everything off. Bring it all back. Hear that noise? Isotope spectral denoise. The best way to use this particular plugin is in the standalone version, but sometimes it's faster to just do it in the DAW. But when you really want to get the most out of the plugin, you really got to open it in standalone. The only issue that I find is in standalone, you have to render in order to hear the changes that you made. So if you have a session like I might have that's an hour long of drums, to make any minute change, you have to render the whole thing. So when it comes to finding the formula that I want to use, I will do it in the DAW, and then I will take my settings and apply it in the standalone. Why? Because there's this setting here, the quality. D is for offline use only, so that's going to be used in the standalone. In the meanwhile, the principle is the same thing. We choose a section of noise, and we hit learn. Turn it off. Let's just hear what it did default. Let's hear X noise. And nothing. You be the judge. I think it kind of sounds good with the noise. It's not that big of a deal to me. I haven't even touched EQ. Why? I don't know. Nothing spoke to me. I mean, we're dealing with cassette and we're dealing with a really old acoustic, so there's pretty much no bass already. But we could high pass it. I personally think EQ is pretty dangerous. I'll watch people mixing and they'll say, oh yeah, here's this. And then when I add my EQ, it ends up sounding like this. And now to some people that sounds good. To their ears, they're like, oh yeah, get rid of those nasty mids and really boost those highs. But I think being so into those boosted highs and those scooped mids, it's just fake ear candy. It's really removing fundamental frequencies that are important for punch, texture. Mids are what help cut through. And if you think about it, so many systems that people use to listen to music, like cars, already have such a hyper curve built into them. I was driving around the other day in my friend's car. It was a Tesla, and he was playing the new Weekend song. I felt like the hi-hats were right here, and the rest of the record was somewhere off in the street, just lost, floating, and I blame that on the lack of mids. Not having mids is going to leave you drowning in the middle of the universe with nothing to grab onto to save your life. Just for the hell of it, let's hear it back to back. Now I can definitely see a lot of people preferring the EQ because it sounds more polished, if you will. To me, keep it as pure as possible. As long as you are putting a lot of color in the front end, you don't have to do much later in the box. My mixing philosophy is always less is more. Try to keep it as organic and natural as possible. That is how I record the cassette, dump it in the computer, and mix it. It's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it takes a lot more work. It depends on the cassette. It depends on a lot of things. But for me, it's just that Type 1 RTM cassette that just has the right amount of color when I put in that Panasonic machine. Now I like the microphone built onto it, it's fine, but you're going to get a little bit more noise. You might get some more mechanic noise too. So I like to use the microphone because then I can get the microphone a little bit further away from the actual cassette machine. That way I get a somewhat cleaner sound. But at the end of the day, we're not really going for clean. We're going for something really texturized and colored and just different.